88.1 FM and AM 1220.
Hometown.
They're amazing, and every single one of their songs is amazing, except for like one.
Your hometown station.
And after that glowing review, this is KHTS News Director Jade Aubuchon, and I'm here today once again with California Assemblywoman Suzette Martinez Valladares, who represents our Santa Clarita Valley. How are you doing today, Suzette?
Hi, it's so great to hear your lovely voice, Jade. I am doing phenomenal. Day 2 of back in session for the final sprint to end of session of my first term in the state assembly. So over the next month, we're going to be voting on, I think it's over 800 bills here in Sacramento. So happy to be back, but even happier to finish this month and get home.
Yeah, goodness gracious, 800 bills. Wow. Yikes. All right. Well, it is August. Summer's drawing to a close. School is coming back, and we've survived the summer heat so far, and you've got a lot of work ahead of you.
Oh, yeah. It is pretty much every day starting on Thursday. Every day that we're up here, we will be on the assembly floor voting on those 800 bills, voting on bills to finish up California's budget. They're actually having committee hearings about the budget today, and I think we had one yesterday. And also, my bills that are in the state Senate appropriations will come back to the floor. Really excited about my bills on Wildfire, Saugus Strong Act. I'm sure we're going to go through some of these topics, but still reading through the bills, deciding where I'm at, and obviously representing the voice of our community.
Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate you for doing that. Just a real quick couple of breakdowns here. You said there are 800 bills. How many days left of session are there thereabouts?
Wow. So actual days. So we, according to California state constitution, we have to be done at the end of a 2-year session by August 31st.
Oh, wow.
So let me think. We have 2 more days this week. We have 4 days next week. So that, and then we have an additional 5 days, 3 days. I don't know. That's a lot of days. Anyone adding up that math for me?
Like maybe 20-something.
So 10, 4, 18, about 20 days. 20 days of sitting and reviewing bills and voting whether or not they're going to live or die. And these bills, if they don't make it through, they die. They have to be reintroduced next year in January when the whole process starts over again because we have an election in November.
That is right. Well, wow, I don't envy you there in terms of those work hours. But let's go over a couple of some of those topics that are affecting some of your constituents every day. Let's start with the number one thing that's still on everyone's mind, gas prices. Obviously, they're not quite as bad as they were earlier this year, but most Californians are still looking around, $5 to $6-ish per gallon at the pump. What's going on up there in Sacramento?
Oh, well, you're right. Jade, this is one of the things I hear about most from my constituents, from my family, my friends, and my neighbors. California's gas prices are the highest in the nation. The national average of gasoline is $4.19. However, lucky us, in California, we have an average of $5.59. Let me just tell you that $5.59 is better than the $6.99, $7.10 we were looking at earlier this summer. But that's still pretty high. When you think about it, it's still really high. And if you have to put in 15 gallons into your tank every couple of days, that adds up. And coupled with inflation, the cost of the basics like food, housing prices, energy prices, Californians are really struggling and they can't afford to live here. And that is not just evident anecdotally by what we're hearing from people. It was also reported that last year alone, over 170,000 Californians fled the state, and quite predominantly because they can't afford to live here. The Problem Solvers Caucus is, we still have our bill. It could be heard on urgency if there was a political willpower for the legislature to do so. Our bill would reduce the 54-cent gas tax that everybody pays right now for 1 year. We would make sure that tax cut is given at the point of sale. So you would see the tax cut when you purchase it on your receipt. And then it would be in effect for a year, and we would backfill the monies for transportation and road projects with surplus dollars. So, I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful that the legislature will do the right thing, but it's still something I'm fighting for up here.
Well, we definitely appreciate that. You did mention the Problem Solvers Caucus. You've talked about that before. It's a bipartisan group of lawmakers. What would you say is some of the caucus's priorities for the remaining days of session?
Yeah, so it's kind of, California has a multitude of issues that are at crisis level. So the priorities this past, the Problem Solvers Caucus is a new caucus. We're just under maybe 15 months old. The past year, we have done a really good job at, one, identifying members and legislators who, quite frankly, are willing to buck their party and say, this is not a Republican issue, this is not a Democrat issue, this is a people issue, and we're going to put forward solutions to solve problems, not political solutions that favor a party or favor an interest group. We've done a really good job at identifying new members. We started off as 9 members. We've increased to 13 members. And these members are willing to, step up and say, I'm going to make the choice that is the right choice because Californians need us to do that. Over the past year and a half, we've tackled and addressed some really big issues that California is facing. So, climate change and energy, healthcare access, and workforce, and housing, right? These are just 4 issues that the Problem Solvers Caucus is committed to continuing to have the expert conversations, bring together community stakeholders and problem solvers to figure out what the solutions are and to draft those into legislation. I'm excited to, hopefully be reelected in November and continue my leadership with the Problem Solvers Caucus to continue to work on some of these major issues. In the legislature, we're going to be, of the 800 bills, there are bills that range everything from, as I mentioned, our budget, from my bill, which is a CEQA, or California Environmental Quality Act, wildfire mitigation bill that would streamline wildfire mitigations on federal lands, which is, we are surrounded by federal lands in Santa Clarita. It is imperative that the process for mitigating wildfires is timely, less costly, because our community relies on those projects getting done to keep people and property safe. And I also have a few other bills that I'm working on around crime victims, but really kind of excited about what we're going to be voting on in the legislature. And honestly, frankly, a little eager to vote no on some bad bills that are not going to actually do things to reduce crime or to reduce the cost of living in California. And as those bills come up over the next couple of weeks, I'm hoping we can have another conversation to talk about what those bill specifics are. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, thank you. We're here with State Assemblywoman Suzette Martinez Valladares, representing the Santa Clarita Valley. And this is KHTS Radio, and I am KHTS Co-News Director Jade Aubuchon. Suzette, we live in Southern California, and as everybody knows, we're a very fire-prone region. You recently had the opportunity to tour the LA County Inmate Fire Training Camp at Pitchess Detention Center, which is right here in Castaic. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was so honored to have visited the fire inmate camp at Pitchess Detention Center. I was also able to invite our Republican Assembly Caucus leader, Assemblyman James Gallagher, to check out the facility. And man, it is a phenomenal program. It's as I mentioned, Pitching Detention Center is home to an inmate fire program, and it augments units throughout LA County. And in a nutshell, they train eligible inmates to fight fires. So they will go through an 18-day training process where they learn pretty much every technique and everything that the firefighters who are out there employed by either LA County Fire Department and or other agencies, they are given the same tools and the same skills, and they go out there and fight fires. But the program, it's a volunteer program. They volunteer and sign up to do it. And as a result, they do get time reduced from their sentence. It is so vital and necessary. This program is so vital and necessary for a multitude of reasons. One, many of our units over the past several years many units would not have been viable had it not been for this. If it weren't for this program. I think there are over 4 units that rely on anywhere between 30 and 60 inmates who are trained firefighters to help them fight wildfires and or wildfire mitigation projects. What was kind of so cool about being there at the detention center, seeing the barracks that the inmates live in and work in, it was cool for a lot of reasons. One, it's like a pretty amazing program. These men actually work and train every single day. They have a routine. They get up in the morning. They run. They exercise. They take a hike in pretty much all of their gear, right? Because there are, I think it's over 50 pounds of gear that they're hiking with to constantly train so that they are prepared to fight wildfires. It's a rigorous program, and it was pretty phenomenal to see what they're being taught. What was more phenomenal is that these guys actually, they go through this program and they find purpose. And a lot of these individuals have not had the best of childhoods, have not had anything to really look forward to. They're given a skill set. They're useful. They're wanted. They're fighting fires, protecting the communities. It's really phenomenal for them to have purpose during their serving in the program, but also when they leave the program, they're able to go apply to work for some different state agencies if they qualify and are still eligible. It really is a phenomenal program. I don't interject there if you have any questions, because I have one more thing to say about it, and then you might have additional questions about the program. But I'm not an expert on it. I just was so enamored with how successful it's been and what they're doing that I actually pay attention quite detailed.
No, it's a really good program.
Yes, phenomenal program. And then I'll just lastly add that the program is actually at risk. There is a bill in the state assembly, in the state senate, that would make these type of programs illegal because it wants to classify it as indentured servitude, despite the fact that they do get paid and it does serve huge purpose, and it serves a rehabilitation purpose. The programs have also been dwindling because of Prop 47 and Prop 57. With early release, the people who are eligible for this program are typically also eligible for early release, and as they continue to lower the threshold for early release, they don't have eligible inmates to apply for this program. So it's a great program. It's going to continue to be supported. You should check it out if you can.
No, absolutely. Over here at KHTS, we covered a lot of wildfires. I mean, obviously, Santa Clarita being so close to Pitchess and being surrounded by the Angeles National Forest and a lot of open space, we see a lot of wildfires where these inmate firefighters get brought out, and you can always tell exactly who they are because they show up in a very particular design of camp crew truck. They show up and they have their bright orange jumpsuit outfits, so they look different than firefighters who are actually with the Los Angeles County Fire Department. And they're very impressive. They normally come out as hand crews, so that means that they come out on the ground with axes, chainsaws, and try to actually like cut back the brush. They're one of our favorite parts actually of covering wildfires in this area because, as you said, it's a fascinating program, and it actually has been shown to programs like this reduce recidivism rates because, as you said, they provide training, they provide purpose, and they give inmates a sense of pride from the inmates that we have talked to when we had that opportunity, where they are given skills and a potential career to go into. Something interesting I do want to mention, though, is that not all firefighting departments actually will hire these people, which, granted, most of these inmates are part of their pre-qualifications for these programs, at least here in Los Angeles County, is that they are nonviolent offenders. So as you said, they are people who would most likely qualify for early release in the first place. While there are quite a lot of firefighting programs that will accept them, such as the state and federal agencies, not all county agencies actually will.
Correct, and that is, something that I think deserves a second glance in terms of eligibility. And I understand that there are some that will just never qualify due to background, previous background and convictions. But I am happy, that we do have federal and state programs that are willing to give people a second chance. And, they're not just in firefighting industry, but in industries like, the oil and energy sector, which are so vital in California, people deserve a second chance. And ensuring that people are able to leave prison and be rehabilitated is so important, which is actually why we need, Prop 47 and Prop 57 reform. These two propositions, one which minimizes or actually makes it minimizes the threshold of property crimes and makes it misdemeanors that frankly aren't even prosecuted anymore, and or early release. When the voters voted on Prop 57, they voted for people to be eligible for up to a 20% reduction in their sentence, and the governor is making a 40% reduction, a permanent threshold, which for me is just like, well, the voters have voted on this. But the problem is when you force early release and people haven't been rehabilitated, they are more likely to commit crimes, and they do end up coming back. And it's the conversation I had with both the firefighters and law enforcement who work together on this program, is that they do sometimes see some of the same faces. So we do still need reforms on Prop 47 and Prop 57 pretty desperately. And this is a program that would actually work to rehabilitate people, which is why I'm so supportive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do actually want to give a shout out to all of our firefighters, and especially those inmate firefighters who actually help protect our homes and businesses in this area, because the work they do really often goes unsung.
Yes, totally agree.
All right. While we're kind of talking about like our criminal justice system, I did want to touch on the current efforts to recall Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon. Now, we are still hearing back about getting the number of signatures for the recall actually finalized, but it is believed to have been, that it will be on the ballot this November. And I just wondered if you had any additional thoughts on the issues that are going on there.
Well, Jade, I was one of the early supporters and endorsers of the George Gascon recall. He is someone who supports criminals over victims, and I think that the rest of LA County, evident of the 700,000 plus signatures collected across LA County, realized they, were given a raw deal when Gascon was elected, and they've seen what his policies produced, and that is a rise in crime. You're correct in that it's looking like the recall will qualify. They needed 565,000 validated signatures. They did an audit a couple of weeks ago when the signatures were just turned in of the first 5%, and the validation rate, I think, was at like 79% or something. So that meant that because it didn't reach an 80% threshold of validated signatures, they had to count all of them. The LA County Board of Supervisors was supposed to vote, I think today, or it might have been yesterday, on qualifying that recall, but because they're not finished counting, that vote will be postponed, what is most likely to happen. And let me just tell you, as a mom of a 5-year-old, and as somebody who has spent their entire life, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I remember playing out on the streets as a kid, going to the park, walking to the supermarket with my mom or my brother, to the liquor store, the little corner market liquor store to buy candy or ice cream. We can't do that anymore because our streets are not safe. And this is a direct result of George Gascon. I will not let my daughter play outside. We have got to get back to a place where we can enjoy our community, our neighborhoods. And that means that we have to hold criminals accountable. There has to be consequence. The most basic responsibility of government is to protect its citizens, both foreign and domestic. And we are seeing a rise in crime across the board. And George Gascon isn't prosecuting. I mean, he refuses to prosecute gang enhancements for gang members who are essentially organized crime. He also most gut-wrenchingly a few weeks ago eliminated his family and next of kin advocates department. In California, victims, their family members, their next of kin have a constitutional right through Marcy's Law to be a part of resentencing hearings, parole hearings. This is their constitutional right. This is what justice is. When a victim can face their attacker, face the criminal who beat them, or their family member can face them. They have a right to do that. And George Gascon said that it's inappropriate for the district attorney to let those families know that they have those rights and that those hearings and meetings are taking place. He's violating their constitutional rights. It's sickening. I cannot wait for him to be recalled.
Yeah, I just want to add a little bit on that. Back in late February, early March, we got in contact with the family of a young boy and his mother and their neighbor who were killed in a triple murder in the 70s here in Santa Clarita. If it were not for those agents from the DA's office who had gotten in contact with them, they would not have known that their killer was up for parole. Granted, this was 50 years ago, but they still had to show up and collect signatures for a petition to not let this man be let out. And so we saw firsthand exactly how important it was to have that sort of outreach to the families of victims. So we are going to see what happens in November.
Oh yeah, and I have a bill that would actually give families more time to decide whether or not they want to participate. Right now, the DA can cut them off. Well, most respectable DAs that actually give notice can demand that they have 30 days notice. My bill will actually reduce that to allow families more time, 15 days notice, in order to decide. I had another really great bill that was also a brainchild because of our horrific DA. George Gascon refuses to send attorneys or allow deputies to appear at hearings and resentencing hearings and court hearings. And my bill would have provided families up to $900 for private attorney's fees to have representation. The legal system is complex, and it's scary, especially when you've been a victim, to take part in that legal system to find justice. So I would have provided resources when DAs do not want to provide resources. And unfortunately, that bill didn't make it past the Public Safety Committee in the Senate. But I'm going to keep on fighting for victims.
Well, that's all we can ask you for.
Yep.
Well, we're coming to the end of our time here. So tell me, Suzette, what should we be keeping an eye out for from your office in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for a multitude of events we are going to be at, we are going to be participating in. We did a child safety seat. We're going to be working with law enforcement to do catalytic converter etching. I know there are lots of people who have either had their catalytic converters stolen or they know someone on their street. They've watched a Ring video or Nextdoor video and seen, catalytic converters being cut from underneath of them. We're working on providing that service. I'm also keeping an eye out for our Saugus Strong bill. Make a call into Senator Anthony Portantino's office and say, support the Saugus Strong bill, AB 312. Important bill for our community and to keeping students safe across California. And keep an eye out for constant communication with my office. And don't hesitate to reach out to me, Assemblymember.Valladares at californiaasm.gov. If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to our office.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Suzette. Alrighty, and thank you for listening. You'll be able to read more about what Assemblywoman Valladares and what she's been up to in Sacramento over on our website at hometownstation.com or on social media at KHTS Radio.
Your business